Hi, this is your Professor Dr. Culkin. Today I'm going to talk about Topic 2, Part A, and some of the major points that I want you to take away from that reading. And the topic covers the American Revolution. Now, the American Revolution is, of course, an important part of our national story. Even though the United States is now an incredibly powerful nation, the image of a band of idealistic colonists toppling a world power is critical to our national identity. Now, the story, of course, like most stories, is a little bit more complicated. Trouble started brewing when the English crown needed to raise money to pay off debts from the 7 Years' War with France. The colonies, which to a large extent had been left alone, now seemed like a good source of income. Parliament passed the first Revenue Act of 1764, also known as the Sugar Act. Calling the Sugar Act unconstitutional and complaining about taxation without representation, the colonists were further inflamed by the Stamp Act passed the next year. They, among other actions, organized boycotts of British goods. Women were a critical part of the boycott movement, as they were the ones who needed to find ways to make do without the household products provided from England, such as cloth to make clothes. Although the act was eventually repealed, the colonists had been mobilized and protest continues as other taxes were passed. You can see a list of the acts and the colonists' reactions on page 131 of the textbook. Things came to a head in December 1773 in the event known as the Boston Tea Party, during which colonists dressed as Mohawk Indians dumped 340 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. This led to the passage of the Coercive or Intolerable Acts, and the name used depended on which side you were on, through which the British attempted to bring the colonists into line. Leaders from the colonies met in the Continental Congress in September 1774, passing an agreement to halt all commerce with Britain until the Intolerable Acts were revoked. Then in April 1775, battles broke out in Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, and 8 colonists were killed. The colonies, however, had still not officially declared independence from Britain, even though there was already fighting. A widely circulated pamphlet written by a man named Thomas Paine made the case for independence. In this pamphlet, called Common Sense, he declared, "We have it in our power to begin the world over again." It was not until July 4, 1776, that the Second Continental Congress issued the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, and that's why we celebrate July 4th every year. George Washington was selected to command the Continental Army, in part because he was from a southern colony, Virginia, and would help build support for the rebellion in that region. Because far from all colonists supported the revolutionary cause, many fearing the changes, including what they believed to be a breakdown in morality that would come with independence from Britain. 5,000 slaves fought with the colonists. Another 10,000 fought with the British, believing that a British victory gave them their best chance for independence, and some of them even wore freedom to the slaves embroidered on their uniforms. The French were firmly on the side of the Americans, not because they supported the revolutionary cause. France had a monarch at this point, and in fact did not believe in any revolutionary ideology, but because France had this historical rivalry with England. At first, France provided assistance covertly, mostly in the form of supplies, but eventually, encouraged in part by Benjamin Franklin, who traveled to Paris, France officially recognized America's independence. Major fighting in the war came to an end in October 1781, although the Peace of Paris, which officially ended the war and guaranteed the independence of the United States, was not signed until September 1783. Okay, so next week we'll talk about what happens as these various colonies, which we read about last week, are so different, try to come together and form one country. As always, make sure to answer the reading questions and to participate in the discussion board, and I'll see you next week.